to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our order of business this evening is to work through the budget issues, both in the Urban Renewal Agency and our regular meeting. But as usual, we will start off with citizen comments. And did we receive any comments for the Urban Renewal Agency? We did not. We did not, and I don't see anyone in the room here to provide comments. So we will go ahead and move to the consent agenda. Our last meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency was the meeting of April 20th, and I would need a motion to approve those minutes unless there are any corrections or additions.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oberst and Ms. Belts. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? All right. Great. At this time, I would like to open the hearing for the 21-22 Urban Renewal Agency budget and a presentation from staff. So,
Thank
Anna
you,
Chenard.
Chairman Coons, Chairperson Coons, and also to the board members. We are holding a public hearing this evening to look at adopting the approved budget from the Budget Committee of the Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency. The total budget being contemplated is $3,807,900 of proposed potential spending. And there are not many items to note other than that we have a $4 million loan that we hope to spend down, a portion of it on a new city hall. Otherwise, we have several other projects that are in the pipeline, and since the Urban Renewal District expires in less than 5 years now, we are hoping to make great progress on that this fiscal year. With that, I would take questions.
Any questions? Nope. And again, any public comment on the budget? Seeing none. All right. I will declare the hearing closed and we will proceed to the motion. There's a motion in your packet. To adopt resolution number 40, which adopts the budget, makes appropriation, and declares the tax increment for the coming fiscal year.
Make it
I'm
so
ready
easy.
to make a motion.
Thank you. Do you have that motion, Carol, or do you need some?
No, I do. Sorry.
That's okay.
I move adoption of resolution number 40, adopting the budget, making appropriation of tax increment for the 2021-22 fiscal year.
Thank you. Well, second from Ms. Belts. We'll go ahead and take that here. Thank you, Ms. Salinas. And all in favor, please signify. Oh, yes.
Just in that discussion so much as a comment, should someone read this, and hopefully the record will reflect that there was considerable discussion about this in the budget hearing, in the budget process. So while we're going to move this very quickly tonight, there was considerable discussion and due diligence done on it previously with both council and citizens or directors rather, and citizens. So so hopefully that can be reflected in the minutes.
Yeah.
I would like to just express my excitement over having this money moving forward towards the City Hall project. It's great. Good for the city.
Yeah. Thank you. Good point, Mr. Carey, that this isn't exactly a rubber stamp. We have had a lot of work. The hearing part is the legal part to adopt it, but we were all able to participate fully in good conversation. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right. And All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call, please. Thank you, Ms. Bowman.
You're welcome. Ms. Salinas Oliveros,
Yes.
Ms. Belts,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Ms. McKeel. Ms. McKeel,
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Mr. Oberst.
I'm missing some of the sounds.
Oh. Mr. Oberst,
Yes.
Ms. Coontz.
Aye. Carries 7-0. Thank you. Yeah, let's all speak into our microphones so that they can be sure and hear us, that those that are not joining us in person. Thank you, everybody. All right, so that passes, and having no other business before the Urban Renewal Agency, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
And all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Great, thank you very much. All right, we shall now call to order the Tuesday, June 1st meeting of the Monmouth City Council. And roll call, please, Phyllis.
Counselor Belts.
Still here.
Counselor Carey.
Here.
Counselor Lopez is excused. Counselor McKeel.
Here.
Counselor Oberst.
Here.
Counselor Oliveros.
Here.
Mayor Coontz.
I am here. Thank you very much. And tonight, our consent calendar consists of the minutes of the council meeting of May 18th. Those were in our packet, and I would accept any corrections or changes or additions if anyone
Like, and that relates to a very unexpected source, which is our property tax levy. I have not really figured out why they're coming in as slow as they are, but because our other property taxes are coming in at an expected pace. I don't actually think we will be $10,000 short on the amount of property tax levy revenue that I'm asking for, but I would like a little bit of a buffer so I don't have to come back again. I believe, though, it is looking like we will be about $5,000 short of what was forecast based on the amount that we levied. And all I can put it down to is prior year collections, a combination of that, as well as a potential slowing of current year property allocations. So the way that we have dealt with this in the past, and this happened because we try to maintain a very minimal fund balance in that, so we're not asking more from the citizens than we need for debt service. The other piece of it, of course, is interest earnings that we have not earned much in this very low interest rate environment. If we do have a shortfall, the general fund can make that shortfall up, and that has happened at least once in the past in 2014, shortly after we did our original levy. So what I'm asking for is the ability to do a transfer of up to 10,000 if we do not get the revenues that were projected originally. And that will just serve to ensure that we have a positive fund balance. We have adequate appropriations to pay the debt service, but we cannot have a negative cash balance or a negative fund balance. And so that's sort of the story behind it, and I'm happy to take questions.
All right, this one-time transfer, because it would have to be done before June 30. So getting permission now, and those final tax collections don't come in quite yet. So
Right.
we don't know what it's going to look like June 30. So Councilor Oberst?
So just, if you can answer this quickly, if not, we'll talk later. Okay. But so you're saying that all the other tax collections have been meeting projections except this one fund. I can't pay my property taxes and say, except for the police station.
No, correct.
And so,
It is perplexing, and I need to have more conversation with the assessor's office. But their initial take on it was a combination of we are seeing some shortfalls in some accounts, and it may just be that the ones that are within the city are maybe having some shortfalls as opposed to some that are not, that affect other areas. And so, it's a little bit perplexing, but again, I don't know that I won't get it all. I just, it is closer than I'd like given the fund balance that we have.
okay, no, I'm supportive of this move. It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
The situation exists.
Well, how's it possible? This I mean, mechanically, how's it possible? I mean, don't they write one check?
Right, but so I don't know if at the assessor's office, they have done some kind of allocation methodology that is not what I would have expected. But I asked a certain amount of a certain levy amount, and then I grossed it up, but I thought would be the collection rate, and then for what the discount rate is. And so if people pay early, as you know, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, logically, I'm struggling with it a little bit as well. But I also built in an interest revenue estimate that's falling a little behind, and also prior year collections are also falling
Right.
behind
Huh.
by several $1,000s. And so it was close enough. One of the reasons that I have levied a little more this year is to hopefully try and make up for that. So you're not supposed to levy significantly above what your debt service is. And so you have to kind of balance that against what you think your interest earnings will be, so you're not carrying a big balance as well. So that can be a challenge to master that balance.
Yeah, it is, because when you're doing all that, you're doing that way before they've even assessed all the values.
Yeah.
So trying to figure that out is a balancing act, and appreciate this abundance of caution, which we may or may not need. So any other questions or comments? All right, this would be resolution number 1917. And I would entertain the motion in.
I would move that resolution 1917 to authorize a contingency use to increase transfer out of the general fund to the police station general obligation bond fund due to a revenue shortfall, and that general obligation bond fund be approved.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Oberst and Councillor Belts. Any other questions? All right, roll call, please, Phyllis.
Counselor Belts.
Aye.
Counselor McKeel.
Yes.
Counselor Oberst.
Yes.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
All right, thank you very much. And now starting into next year, right? So we will open a public hearing regarding the 2021-2022 budget. I now declare this hearing open. And a presentation on our first item, the resolution of the use of shared revenue.
Okay, so we need to have a separate public hearing for revenue sharing from the budget, but yes, this can operate as the revenue sharing public hearing. And yes, and so as far as the use of state revenue sharing, I know that everyone in this room has heard the story before. We do have an opportunity to say, no, we don't want that money from the state. However, that would impact our budget because we've built in estimates for that revenue in order to do provide services that we would with that undesignated source of funds. And so it is my recommendation that we accept the revenue sharing and advise the state to do that. And so I would take any questions if there are any.
I think I'm ready for the proposed motion.
Well, we'll wait just a second because this is a public hearing. I have to make sure we don't have any public who wish to comment on this, and then
Oh,
we'll
sorry.
close the hearing and take a vote. I know. There's no one in the room. I assume we received no public comment on the revenue sharing.
You did not.
All right. I declare the hearing closed and will entertain a motion now, Councillor McKeel.
I move approval of resolution number 1918, declaring the city's election to receive state revenues in fiscal year 22.
I second.
Great. Thank you, Councillor McKeel and Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
It's my favorite. In city
Seeing
government.
no comments. All in favor? No, Phyllis will do a roll call for this.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Belts,
Yes.
Counselor McKeel.
Definitely yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We shall do that. And now move on to the budget hearing and adoption. So I declare the hearing open for the fiscal year 2022 budget and capital improvement plan. Sharon.
Thank you. Okay, so you have before you a budget that is approved by the Budget Committee, and it totals $50.4 million approximately. It includes a levy for debt service for our existing general obligation bonds of $261,400, and it also includes a proposed improvement plan, which for this fiscal year is in the range of $4 million. I would point out some highlights of this budget are that we will see all of our services maintained at the level that we have provided before, subject to two future rate resolutions that are in your packet for those particular funds. Otherwise, property tax revenues are coming in at a reasonable level that will help support COLAs for your staff, and also will support ongoing service levels with only a few small enhancements, one of which is an addition of 0.05 FTE to the police department by a combination of two part-time staff positions. And then also a what I will call a temporary increase, but not an official increase in the FTE for Monmouth Power and Light for their apprentice groundsman position. A groundman, sorry, get me later. And that position will backfill for some upcoming retirements that are proposed or that are expected to occur over the next few years. Otherwise, we have a number of initiatives that council has supported and listed based on council goals that we're excited about and that we have been able to build into our general fund primarily, including a very, very value statement that we are hoping to make our own. and build into the way that we do our business to the extent it's not already built in. The financial implications of this budget are that it is balanced as it currently stands, absent any further action by the council to what our estimated revenues are or proposed expenditures. And so with that, I know you're all fairly familiar with it, but I would welcome any questions that you have.
All right. Are there any questions? Okay, we have no one in the room for public comment regarding the budget. Phyllis, did anyone contact us regarding public comment for the budget?
We received no comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's see, no one online. I will declare the hearing closed and entertain the motion as proposed in your packet.
I have it ready, or, go ahead,
Okay.
Councilor Salinas Oliveros.
Okay, thank you. I move approval of Resolution 1919, adopting the budget, making appropriations, levying ad valorem taxes, and adopting the capital improvement plan for the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Councilor Salinas Oliveros and Councilor Oberst for the second. So any other discussion, questions, or comments regarding the Good.
Mayor,
Yes.
just to reiterate what Councilor Carey had said earlier, this budget was discussed at length over several meetings, and actually it takes about a year to put a budget like this together. And so city did an excellent
nest, shall we say, as far as what that rate increase might be. And we would prefer to do several small rate increases over time, as you know, rather than do big numbers even every other year, because that can be hard on folks for planning. So I think that is the goal, is to do that that rate study, time permitting. Chuck may be able to give you more information about the progress on that, but that's the plan. Does that answer?
Yeah, so I'm assuming we're anticipating another at least small rate increase next year. And I'll wait for Mr. Thurman. Thank you.
Janet was spot on with regards to what she said. We're in very good shape, but it's the work that we're projecting out. We've had a lot of large expenditures. The highway project, the Ash Creek Station project, that we did not anticipate would be there. They just kind of came in quickly, and we spent a lot of money. And so as we look to the future, there's a few more large projects looming out there that we have to be prepared for. But just like we did in the past, we're very prudent and avoid any rate increase we do.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. Very much appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Any portion of this due to Bonneville rate increases, and as far as I know, they kind of give us a little bump every year almost, and I'm just,
Right.
you know, so this becomes an external factor that, you know,
That we
can't
have
say
less
the
impact.
city's raising rates again. Well, we have to pay for the electricity we buy.
That is one of the major costs we have. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point. So I don't think the rate increase was as hefty this year. Chuck will correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an increase, and we do expect increases, and that's one of the things we try to anticipate with our increases. And as you know, in the past, we have been able to actually decrease the rates, and so we do watch very carefully to make sure that, you know, that we're trying to keep this not be hard on our community's pocketbook.
And earlier I sent you some information with regards to dues and publication. What I did information on is from last Friday, we will expect a 14% increase from the Oregon Department of Energy for energy sources assessment. We're fighting that one back. That we think a 14% is absolutely irresponsible of them. It should be out of the general fund, but out of the utilities budget. We'll see how that goes.
Wow. Yeah. Assuming that's not a giant line item, but still the increase is pretty shocking.
Yeah, and when I say general fund, it's not the city's general fund, it is the state's general fund. They continue to raise our assessments to pay for things that are general fund obligations.
Yeah.
And lost in costing.
All right, John.
Chuck, and this is only slightly off topic, but what is our vulnerability? You know, there's been a couple major cyber attacks across the country. We're probably hidden fairly well, but we do have a connection with Bonneville. What kind of vulnerability do we have, and what kind of investment ought we to be making to mitigate that?
And can somebody paraphrase with a little higher voice? I don't making out the question.
I'm sorry. I'll speak into the machine, as they said at the Watergate hearings. The question had to do with vulnerability of our system to cyber attacks, hacks, etc. There's been a couple of those, as you're aware, across the country, and are there things that we ought to be investing in that would help us if we are vulnerable?
Actually, we're doing very well with our preparedness for any vulnerability. Our biggest vulnerability is if Bonneville were to have a problem, because we are 1% reserved for Bonneville. And I am really concerned going into this year with this hot weather. If there are problems with wildfire, we have to turn off. Bonneville has notified us, we'll have to shut down, and then we are with nothing. I'm trying to work on what it says, what do we do if that continues to the future? Because that isn't a good answer for us. So whether we look at cogeneration or whatever we may be able to do. You'll be hearing from me about that.
Great question. Thank you. Anything else? All right. We'll entertain the motion.
I move approval of resolution 1920, establishing new electric rates and repealing resolution 1906.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Peltz and Councilor Carey for the second. And again, because we do a resolution each time we change the rates, we just have to repeal one and start over. So that's the reason for that. And seeing no further questions, I'll have Phyllis call.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Beltz,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Yep, never fun, but something we need to do because again, as those inputs go, we've got to keep pace. Thank you and appreciate the study coming up. All right, and same thing, looking at our other enterprise fund, the water rates.
Yes, so thank you. The budget also contemplates, as recommended by, in this case, an expert consultant, a 5.5% increase for our water rates. The water fund did not make a lot of rate increases in the past. As a result, we are one of the lower water rates as well in this part of Oregon. And so we're falling behind in what we can do with our capital expenditures. And as you know, by not raising rates, we actually have had to tell the sewer fund. We are contemplating using ARPA grant funding for this fiscal year. And even with that, a 5.5% rate increase as amended by the consultant that did our rate study does maintain us at our fiscal policy level, but does not give us a lot of scotia room. And so there will be, anticipating Council Keel's question, in this for probably the next several years, according to what the consultant is recommending. For the good news is that, again, we won't do that without a lot of thoughtful looking at bottom line to see what we can what we can massage and take, you know, as far as our personnel costs and also our capital costs. But this is a fund that is very driven by compliance issues. We want clean, safe water, so it is a very important fund to make sure it is funded on that. So in that regard, I did add 2 definitions as well, a derivatives and a swaps definition into your definitional list. And then the other thing that I formalized was some ratios that I've been talking about for the last 2 years in the narrative that goes with our debt schedules in the budget document. We really didn't have anything beyond what the minimum state requirement was as far as something we had to adhere to. And so what I wanted to do was formalize 3 other measures. And this I will credit Budget Committee with some of this discussion because, you know, the questions were asked not at this year's Budget Committee, but at last year's Budget Committee regarding, well, how do you decide, you know, what is a good debt level to have? And as you know, in the community, we have folks that are somewhat concerned about the leveraging that we have with MyNet. So this is to show, yeah, we take that into account. And in fact, you know, this is why we do a refunding, is to get $1.5 million in savings in interest in order to better position ourselves for future debt. So that's kind of what I did with the debt section. And I think I'll break there for questions if there's any on the debt section, and then I'll move on to my thoughts on the reserve section.
Yes, Councillor McKeel.
Oh, she's going in and out again.
Mike is just going off.
Yeah, you're just in and out, in and
There
out.
it goes. Yeah, my mute button is really strange right now. Oh, okay, so actually I have a question about the debt refunding of outstanding balance. It's on the top of page 42. Well, do I have the right place? Yes, where the net present value savings shall be at least 3%. Being that we're working with often millions of dollars, I mean, 1% actually is a lot of money. And you know, like we have a $4 million anyway. So should that be lower just because it's with, or is there a way that you evaluate that? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair question. And I would say, yeah, if it ended up being $500,000 in savings, even if it were only 1%, I would bring it to you. So yeah, there is some judgment to be made there. But the idea is that clearly, if there's at least 3% savings, it's worth looking at. But if I'm talking to my financial advisor, which I do several times a year, just to see, you know, is there, especially if I notice that interest rates are at historic lows, then I will, you know, say, okay, what can we do with this knowledge, and have them run some numbers for me. And then if it looks reasonable, I will, you know, or looks like something that, you know, we have both sufficient time and energy and, and can make happen in a timely manner, then I will definitely bring that back to you.
Hear me.
Funny.
Oh. Wait, you're on mute, Carol. You missed the window there. Yeah, it's
How about using the chat function, maybe?
all right. You're on mute now if you want to try to talk.
Nope. It's
Nope.
Oh,
It
actually,
shows, there you go.
okay. So is it working now?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry, not to be, I think maybe Councillor Carey would just like this because I'm looking at a stickler of words, so in his honor. So I'm assuming then that next sentence, the refundings with lesser or negative savings, is the sentence that covers that possibility that you make that evaluation and not worry about the percentage.
Correct. The compelling public policy or financial. I could add in some language that says or other financial. It's up to you.
No, that works. That works. I just wanted to make sure I was reading right. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great observation. It's not like even refunding our homes, we're talking millions instead of maybe a couple 100,000, but 3% is pretty typical, I'd say, and partially because of the risk involved. The interest rates are what they are today, but the bond market could change. And so you do all the work and you pay some of the upfront costs, which are fixed costs. And if you're really kind of on the edge of things, that can just all be blown out in fees and the market. So it's pretty typical to give a little more cushion there, but some questions. So, questions or details, Mr. David?
Not on this particular one.
All right. So you should on to the reserve policy
Thank you.
changes.
Right.
No.
So I took to heart the concern that we need to find or maintain a happy medium between sitting on taxpayer and ratepayer dollars in a reserve versus maintaining a reserve that is fiscally prudent should something be needed for a rainy day. And I did a table, which I hope you saw in on page 36 of the document, I think.
Mhm.
I don't know what my pagination is like here. To look at a couple of different scenarios that I found as I looked at the GFOA, which is your Government Finance Officers Association. They have pulled together fiscal policies from a number of agencies nationwide, both big and small. And again, I tried not to just look at Oregon. But I did look at some other Oregon cities. And a very typical one is 3 months of payroll, as opposed to a straight percentage. And so, again, it depends on the fund, how comparable they are across what we currently do. But I did not see that they were so far off with any of them that I felt, other than the capital asset one, which I didn't think was worth considering at all. But I didn't see that they were that far off. And if anything, in several cases, it would require that we set aside quite a bit more than I think is called for in our circumstances. However, I wanted to give you that option in case council feels like there is one that they feel they would be more comfortable with either raising or lowering. And these are, again, just some options. I mean, we can be completely arbitrary, but it's nice to be able to hang our hats on something that has some kind of benchmark, such as whether it be payroll, whether it be operating expenses, which would also include your payroll and your materials and services, or whether it be seems to be the primary dictate, if you will, of the best practices that from my reading, is that having a stable benchmark and then a percentage of that benchmark or a number of months is the approach that's usually taken. So and with ourselves, we are doing more pre-loss legal for situations that we may encounter with a very litigious society. We have, obviously, with our two major utility, well, actually 5 utilities, but two departments, thank you. We have just a boatload of very important trainings for safety that make it so that our staff do know how to behave when they're out manning equipment, and also trying to protect the public by not doing anything that would be untoward with the big equipment that they run. Right down to your library, who also, and I don't have all of the senior center or all of the police classes reflected here because I ran out of room. But let me tell you, boy, that police department has a lot of very good training as far as their outreach and what they have done. And of course, we have quite a lot of COVID training as well that has become necessary in the last year and a half, or pandemic training, I guess you could call it. So all of that to say, I think that those results speak for themselves, but I would take any questions that you have about or concerns that you might have about risk levels at the city.
Yes, Councillor Belts.
Since you mentioned the police training, and this is a pretty exhaustive list, but I would be so interested, and I think others would as well, to again see the list of all the training that our officers are going through, because that is part of risk assessment, but it's also something just, I think, important for our community to know.
Right.
And if there's a way we can publicize that, that would be awesome.
Sure. And there a lot of their trainings are in here, but I do have some more that Isaiah provided after I published the report. So I can, and I can either beef this up, or I can put it out in a way that it will be available.
I don't mind if you go to page, 5 of 5.
Yeah, right? How much thicker could I make this report? And I did actually want, before we leave the fiscal policy, we obviously have to adopt it again, but I did want to mention that I did make one small change in the reserve policy section, which would not have been obvious, I realized, because you didn't have the red line copy. But the calculation for the 25% and 15% respectively. It said in the policy that we were including transfers in that calculation, and that's not normal, and I have never done that. And when I was reading that policy, that section of the policy with a fine tooth comb, they shared that, we don't do that. So I took out the word transfers, and so I'm hoping that that will receive your blessing along with the rest of my changes.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to, you like the graph on page 52, and so did I, where you're comparing the city of Monmouth to other cities with a population of 5,000 to 10,000 population, and all members of CIS are insured.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of general liability, property, and workers' comp, and just, thumbnail calculations, we're anywhere from 1/2 to 1/10.
Yeah.
The level of claims. And the thing that most shocked me was where general liability and workers' comp, how the small cities were above the CIS average. And that says we're really doing a good job. We're way outperforming other small cities in keeping our workers safe and making sure that we're not having to ask our insurer to cover mistakes of one kind or
I'm
another.
almost afraid to say it out loud, but I have been amazed at how well we deal with our workers' comp.
This is, so, hold your breath, but this has been a pattern for a long time that we get an award every year from CIS for our risk management.
True.
And so keep up your work. I'm really happy. And the other thing is I would make a motion, if you're ready.
Well, we'll.
I would move resolution 1922, which readopts the city of Monmouth fiscal policy as outlined.
I'll second.
Thank you, Counselor Oberst for the motion and Counselor McKeel for the second. So any other questions or comments about any of our three pieces? Counselor Carey is looking at these things on his phone, which I do not envy him, so I'll give him a second.
No, I'm fine.
All right.
I've been to them.
Okay, and this is a resolution, so Ms. Bowman.
Counselor Belt.
Aye.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
Counselor McKeel.
Aye.
Counselor Oberst.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, does the resolution have to state that we're repealing the other one or no?
Not for this one, it doesn't.
Okay,
It's just, it's a readoption of the existing
Yeah.
policy with amendments.
all right, thanks. Okay, that brings us to another resolution. We have another policy, our investment policy, and again, making sure that we are assuring people like our lenders and our auditors that we are being prudent and responsible with our funds, but also maximizing the benefit for our taxpayers. Go ahead, Janet.
Thank you. So the last one that you'll hear from me, and the investment policy is another one, along with the fiscal policy, that we do need to bring back to you annually, even if there are no changes. And I am going to say, to your great relief, I hope, that after 3 years of making a lot of changes, I'm happy with the way it reads right now. Again, we are not, we're a small town. We have a small portfolio. And prudence is really what the state is looking for. We have guidelines within the policy, of course, that talk to what we are supposed to be doing, and return is not the highest on the list. And so fortunately, we have a local government investment pool that, as you know, is outperforming short-term rates are doing, and it's a very liquid vehicle that is a really good management tool for us as far as ensuring that we get a decent return, frankly, on the reserves that we maintain. And so I would like to propose that this year, I have no changes. If you go through again and would like to propose some changes, I am happy to take them. But otherwise, I would say let's just readopt as we are supposed to do.
Counselor McKeel.
Oh, I was ready to do a motion and then I lost the page. I'll get it back.
Page 54.
Thank you. It's like, whoa, what did I do here? I was too active. Okay, I'm ready for this. Sorry. Thank you for your patience as I scrolled down too far. I move approval of Resolution 1923, which it readopts the City of Monmouth investment policy. Thank you very much, Ms. Chenard.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor McKeel and Counselor Salinas Oliveros for the second. Any comments or questions? Okay, resolution number 1923, please, Phyllis.
Counselor Oberst.
Aye.
Counselor Belt.
Yes.
Counselor McKeel.
Yes.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
All right, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Janet.
Yeah, great work.
It is tedious work sometimes to have to check all these boxes, but it yields dividends, so thank you very much. All right, and that moves us to a couple of other discussion items this evening, and one of those is came up a question about our sidewalk improvement grant program, and I know Russ has given us a nice little resolution or a nice little recap sort of where this went, but I do want to say the last council had opportunity at length to learn about how we not only anticipate sidewalk maintenance, what share of that belongs to the city, and our ordinances regarding the homeowner share of sidewalk maintenance. We reviewed that with a number of other cities and programs. Great discussions. We all know that there are several pedestrian improvements we hope to make, and we've set some money aside for those. We're also doing our Highway 99 pedestrian study, and I'm sure that will identify some other things for us. So this kind of all was wrapped into that, and I don't think Russ mentioned in here that we sent him out, or an intern out, to really literally inventory every sidewalk in our community. We have a lovely list, sort of almost block by block, of sidewalks that don't meet current standards. And we asked, what would that cost if the city did undertake those repairs? And it was a little breathtaking, I must say. We also consulted with our attorney, Lane Shetterly, about having the city maintain sidewalks, and that incurs liability, and certainly would set us on a very different path for saving for future maintenance. So after much discussion, we came up with this current program and had planned all along to sort of bring this back. So I'm going to let Russ talk now, but then kind of determine how we want to move forward. But again, this is something long time in coming for most of us on council. So go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Yes, you're right. This the implementation of this particular program has been a long time coming, years in the making, we can say, and it you know, I did intend to give a little bit of background as to where it came from, but ultimately tonight wanted to share with you the program. Let you know that starting with the fiscal year and basically with the adoption of this next budget, that we'll have the funds available to implement a sidewalk improvement grant program that will help to offset. It actually has two functions. It will help to offset the burden that homeowners have for bringing their sidewalks up to current standards or free from hazard, but it also has a component that will be encouraging folks that don't have sidewalks in front of their homes currently. It incentivizes them to install sidewalks in front of their homes as well. Kind of going back in time, the city's policy with regard to sidewalks and unsafe sidewalks has always been, well, I shouldn't say always had been, but the code has in writing that it was the adjacent property owner's responsibility to keep the sidewalk in front of their homes free from defect, and that they were, that they're liable for injuries that occur in front of their residences on the sidewalks. And then the city had a policy of when hazardous sidewalks are brought to our attention, we would go out, make contact with the homeowner, make them aware, and give them some time to fix their sidewalks. That went on for a little while, and then we got a little more proactive. Council felt it was important that we be more proactive as we started to look at the need to make Monmouth a more walkable city, a safe walkable city. We started a more proactive approach, and as we reached out to more folks to repair their sidewalks and identified, we started getting some feedback from citizens, and council got feedback from citizens that placed an undue burden on them, and that they were requesting that council look at some options. So that kind of kicked off this study where we looked at, what does that mean? We did a sidewalk survey, there was basically estimated $2 million in hazardous sidewalk repair that would just kind of fix the hazards that were out there. And then there was another $5 million in sidewalk infill. And that came into the discussion when we started talking about a concept of, what would it cost if the city took over a program for maintaining sidewalks? And so we had looked at that, and through the process, we looked at, council considered, what maintaining the old program was, what would a program that provided, say, a 50-50 or some sort of financial support. There was a Corvallis model that was looked at where the city would assess all residents or all utility payers a sidewalk fee, and then would have a program that went around and maintained sidewalks over the course of a 5 or a 10-year program. The Corvallis model still had it where the property owner was responsible for it and liable for anything that might occur in front of their property, but it had the city being the, I'll call it the project manager of going around and getting these projects done. And then the last one concept that was considered was a full city taking over the full responsibility, liability, and everything for sidewalks. And so as Mayor Kuntz had alluded to, council gave consideration to those and then gave staff direction to develop a 50-50 or a cost share program. And so that's what, in your staff report, the application, that's what this represents. And I'll also add that, initially, or the direction from council was a program that assisted single-family property owners with the cost of sidewalk repair in front of their homes. Since kind of that direction, new council goals in the current year, it was, I guess it was thought that it made sense to take this from an assistance program to an improvement program that encouraged improvement to sidewalks throughout the community, and the city investing in improving the walkability and the safety of Monmouth. And so the program that we have here is relatively, we tried to keep it simple. We didn't want a whole lot of detail and hoops that folks would need to jump through. But the short of it is that any property is eligible for a 50-50 share grant for approved sidewalk improvements, up to $1,000 per property. To be eligible, the property owner needs to fill out the application, go through the process, hire a licensed contractor who is, who's I'll call it a sidewalk contractor, but a contractor that is familiar with ADA requirements, sidewalk work, and is licensed to work in the public right of way. And then once the work is done, the project's been inspected both by Public Works and the building department for the work that they need to do. Then the property owner can submit their receipt showing their paid invoice to the contractor, and the city will reimburse them for either 50% of the cost or up to $1,000. And so I think it's a good program. Like I said, it takes a balance of assisting folks who will find having to do sidewalk repair, hazard repair. It will provide them some assistance to that financial burden, but it also provides some incentive to folks who don't have sidewalks in front of their homes to go ahead and go through the process of installing sidewalks in front of their homes. The plan is to implement this July 1st. We'll put it on the city's website. We'll have some Facebook posts that make folks aware of the program, and then we'll get it started. The program, kind of the details in the process, staff will evaluate year to year and make sure that the process is working well, and we'll make small tweaks to it like we have many of our other programs. But to start off, this is the program that we're offering, and we're looking forward to it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And I just want to point out, because this is one thing that had come up, I know, in our discussions, the staff doesn't mention, but the application does, that folks with a corner lot would be eligible for some additional funding because of the complexity and cost of the corner requirements, right?
Yeah, corners have twice as much sidewalk, and not only that, they also will have a ADA ramp on the corner. And so looking at ways to assist them with the fact that they've got oftentimes twice as much sidewalk as the regular residential property.
So kind of the
And I'll
maximum
also-
we would look at with this would be about 25 people, because we'll go up to $1,000. That would be the maximum number of folks we could assist in a year. And if they do corners, we won't get quite that many sidewalks out of the program. So the questions or comments, I saw Councillor McKeel and then Councillor Obers.
Thank you for this, Mr. Cooper. I'm wondering if this is actually going to encourage people without sidewalks to do the infill, right? Is the word. How much does a sidewalk section cost? Because they're pretty standard of, how big they are.
Typical sidewalk construction is about $10 a square foot. So you start, measuring out a house, and I apologize. I actually don't know what a 50-foot wide lot would typically run for sidewalk construction.
I was looking at, how they have sections and they're usually the same size. So that's what, about 2.5 feet, or is that 3 feet a section? Is it like a 3x3?
They're going to be either 5x5 or 6x6.
Oh, wow. Okay. I should have just leaned out and looked at my window, because I could.
Yeah,
And
we anticipate that will, that historically speaking, the most sidewalks that we've issued a notice to correct has been in the 12 to 15 range. So this still leaves some space for folks who want to actually do a full improvement. They're still going to be, if I decided to put a sidewalk in front of my house, I'm still committing to a significant investment that's more than the $1,000 that that the city would be offering.
Yeah, I like this for helping residents who are trying to fix a sidewalk so that they're not like socked with a cost that they can't do. Although I think that there might also anyway be some residents that can't afford it anyway. If you're on fixed income, you're on fixed income. However, I think this is probably not a program that's going to encourage people to put in sidewalks when they don't exist, because it's going to be. You said it was how much per square foot?
$10 a square foot construction cost.
Okay. So 10 times. Oh, never mind.
Well, it works out to about
I remembered the wrong. No, then I think that never mind. I'm taking that whole statement back. Never mind.
Councillor
So-
Obers.
a typical 50 to 60 foot lot, 5 to 6 foot wide sidewalk is going to be 2,500, 3,000, somewhere in that range to do the entire sidewalk. What might encourage some folks on infill is, and I believe we still require, if you do a significant addition to your home and you don't have a sidewalk, now you do. It's a requirement with the building permit. to go ahead and build that sidewalk. So now instead of absorbing the whole cost like I had to, these folks can get a little bit of help from the city on that infill. Okay, so that would be a helpful piece. It's not the answer to all our sidewalk steps.
Okay. And
I-
you guys, I know you have your phones on to look at things.
I don't.
Need to turn off your mics.
I think actually, Mr.
Because that
Cooper
their
could,
mics are on.
yeah, if Mr. Cooper can mute himself when others are talking, that might be where the feedback is
Yeah, I
coming
think it might be. So, and just a few other things real quickly, Madam Mayor. Russ, if I have a single panel or a couple of panels that have been heaved by a root, and the city says you need to repair that, and I decide I want to do my whole sidewalk, even though I really only needed to do 20 feet of it, am I eligible for the whole thing or just for the part that was actually in need of repair?
So based on the program, it would need to be done by a licensed contractor. With regard to whether the individual is just addressing a repair, you know, we go out and notify them of a repair and they choose to do the entire sidewalk. We're still, that is some of the details that we're going to have to see just how that rolls out. That's still a significant investment for somebody that for most folks are not going to just go, I want to spend $2,500 instead of $400 to, you know, $400 to fix this repair, or an additional $2,500 to go ahead and replace all my sidewalks. So if we find that money is being allocated to something that is not a good fiscal use of city funds, then those are the kind of tweaks that we'll look at tweaking the program over time.
Right. If I happen to know how to do concrete work, but I'm not a licensed contractor, I still have to hire a licensed contractor? Question mark.
The way the program is set up, yes, that is true.
Okay. And then finally, one of the problems that I think the layman often has is finding that contractor and somebody who's reliable and honest and so on. I know every year I get a list from the City of Independence of backflow testers that they are aware of, and they say these aren't the only ones. There are others out there. You might want to look around. You've got to make sure that these people are really, you know, in line. But is there any thought to having a list of contractors we know who are qualified to do this work to help people find somebody, with the disclaimer that you still need to double check on them, and there are other people that are not on this list that might do a great job for you?
That's a great question. We have talked about that, and that is our intent. Where we're at right now is that we have not developed the list, and part of what we want to do with developing that list is to have the various contractors apply to be on the list. So they'll fill out an application that lets us know they're licensed contractors, that they're bonded and insured, that that we'll ask them for a range, a kind of a price per square foot range of where they would typically bid a project, so that we have a sense that where they're at, what their intent, you know, how they'll do for our customers, and then we'll produce that list as part of our website. The other cities do that. We just have not had a chance to go through a process to develop that list and be comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all those answers. Very informative.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's great. It also really helps keep those contractors honest, knowing that the city is very aware of the project. They're not going to stumble upon it later on, and that they know what it costs. So, Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have a question about if you have a homeowner who can't afford it, you know, regardless of that you have this program. One, would they be still penalized And would the city maybe work with them to say, let's put you on a 5-year plan, maybe when you have a job, and maybe we can figure so that they're not penalized. So I don't know about that, Russ, if you could answer that for me.
So we don't have let me see how to phrase that. This program did not develop a loan component to the program. That's something that as we move, if we see that something like that is needed, we can come back to council and propose a loan program. I don't know, maybe Janet can answer the question whether or not finance would establish some sort of a payment program. I think the city, what would end up happening is the city would end up having to pay the contractor, I guess. And so I'm not exactly sure how that would play out.
We could structure something along the lines of what we do for SDC liens and loans, and with Lane's help, maybe look at something where a lien would be possible as a repayment. One of the things we try to do that is driven by state law is that we try to make ourselves somewhat a lender of last resort, in the sense that our interest rates will not be as competitive as what would be available from a financial institution. However, we have and we do provide those types of loans, and then if people can pay them off early, we allow that, and there's no penalty for that. And so that's something that could work on, as Russ suggests, if there seems to be a need for it.
Yeah, if I can say, we would want to look carefully at a loan program and create some clear parameters around that. Generally, we're not in the business of lending. And so we need to be careful about how much we extend.
And we would take out a lien on the person's home would be a requirement of that. And that would certainly make things difficult for them as well if things don't work out. So, Councilor McKeel.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was working along the same line of my thinking as Councilor Salinas Oliveros. And I was wondering if a partnership with CDC would help with this, because I know that they provide assistance for homeowners that have something wrong with their home and they can't afford it. So it just kind of maybe some creative partnerships that would help people with without the means.
You see Marty and Janet both taking notes about that. So that's great offering, great suggestion. Councilor Carey?
I have a couple questions on the specific program, but a comment as well. This has been taking years off our life for probably about 6 years now. And while I think the idea of finding better outreach and to be able to get to more people, that might be a phase 2 thing. We can't let great be the enemy of good in something like this. I think we need to move this thing and see what the issues are. Russ, I'm sure you'll be tracking that. So I guess that's my comment on the last little bit of discussion. But Russ, how are you going to identify what and how much is going to need to be repaired? What are the criteria? I don't see that in here.
Sure. The primary criteria for us as far as going out and making contact with property owners is a combination of the sidewalk study that we have and focusing on primary corridors. So those may be collector streets, those will be areas in proximity to the downtown
it looks like everybody made it back to continue our last couple of discussion items and action items. Or actually, okay. Marty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. The next item on your agenda is a resolution recognizing the global climate crisis. And if this feels familiar, it would be for good reason. Back on May 18th, Council adopted a resolution that acknowledged the global climate crisis. And after the meeting happened, one of you noted that it would be worthwhile to recognize Western Oregon University as a partner in some of the work that we may do on climate action. And so tonight there's before you an amended resolution with only a few words added to section 2 that notes Western Oregon University as a potential partner. So I have this before the council for your consideration if you would like to amend your action on May 18th.
Yes, Councillor McKeel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, City Manager Wine. I am ready to do the motion. That's okay?
Yes.
I move approval of Resolution 1924, recognizing the global climate crisis.
I would second that.
That would be a second from Councillor Oberst, I'll take. And any discussion on the change particularly?
I think it's a good change.
Great change.
I am thoroughly in favor of that change.
Perfect.
I would second that change.
All right. You already did. All right. All in favor, please signify by saying, no, it's a resolution. I don't know, let Phyllis take a roll.
Favor of that.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Aye.
Counselor Belts.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Marvelous. Thank you. Appreciate that. And we will get to work with the aforementioned partners. So that's great. All right. One more discussion item, and that is thanks to our voters. Not many of them. It's a little disappointing to see the 25% sort of turnout that our state garners on these kinds of elections, but thanks to those voters and their lovely support for this project. And but now we got to get to work.
Yes.
Well, y'all do. We don't, but
Great.
you do.
Thanks. Well, Mayor and Council, I don't have much to report on this front, except that I was going to also pause and celebrate the support that Monmouth voters gave us on election night. We're very grateful for this support for the ballot measure, and this allows us to secure the final third of funding for our City Hall project. So it's time to get our project organized, and I put a short staff report in your packet tonight so that you'd have a sense of what the next steps will be as the project will get going. I think one of the first things that we're planning to do is figure out and get our construction team assembled, including a construction manager, and also prepare construction bid documents for to be able to work with a contractor to build our building. I'm going to put together a master schedule with some major milestones, and my hope is to be reporting to you regularly so that you understand the progress of the project. And so that'll probably be my next report to you is what folks can expect at certain timelines throughout the project. And on that master schedule, there will be all of the details that you're probably thinking about, including getting construction bid documents completed, going out for a bond sale, which we're talking about doing later in a few months in the summer, probably late August, coming up with plans for relocation during construction, and then everything that comes after that related to construction. So we've re-engaged our architectural team at FFA to begin the work right now to complete our construction bid documents. And one of the things that the mayor mentioned in her community notes this month was the idea of convening a bond oversight committee and a few members in the community who might track along with our project and advise us as we make progress toward building a new city hall. So mostly I just wanted to let you know what, the thinking was about next steps and find out other questions that you have or anything that you're curious about what we're doing next. Because I know that's what I'm being asked most right now is what are we going to do next?
Counselor McKeel?
So I don't know when is best to put this on people's radars, so I just wanted to mention it now. When I was going canvassing to talk with people about the city hall, I happened on a veteran who mentioned that when he came back from the Iraq War, there was the tree in the little park by the city hall was covered with yellow ribbons. And I don't know if we weren't here then, so I don't remember if anybody remembers that. But he was wondering about the status of the tree, if it's too big to be moved. Anyway, so if we could, maybe I'll take that up with the tree board. Maybe that's a good place to do that conversation.
No, great news is that the plans preserve the one large tree in the plan, and so those pictures are online. The other trees were reviewed by an arborist and were deemed not good enough condition to save and to work around.
All right, I'll let him know. He'll be disappointed, but if it's not worth, if it's not able to move it, we'll just kill it in the process anyway.
Well, the big tree stays. The biggest, most beautiful
The
tree
giant
stays.
sequoia is
The sequoia, yeah.
Yeah, and I informed a lot of people were asking, a lot of residents were asking about that. But this one, my impression is it was a smaller tree that was covered in yellow ribbons, so it couldn't have been. It can't be that much bigger now. But I will go back and get more information.
Actually, interestingly, we have talked in the past about doing some kind of veterans memorial, either as part of a clock that needs to be replaced or some other things. So perhaps a good opportunity for fundraising and public art and getting the community engaged in adding pieces like that to our projects. So we'll have opportunities to talk about that. Councillor Carey.
I would like us to think about being intentional and thanking the community. It's been sort of passive at this point. Fine. But if there were, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I was hoping to do, but whoever it was that was so efficient on picking up my campaign yard sign, I was gonna go get a big thank you foam board thing to tack over that as a acknowledgement to all of those that did, and whether there's a banner on the across the Main Street, then something like that. But an intentional, thoughtful thank you and appreciation for that would be good, I think.
The tentative plan that we've been discussing at a staff level is to acquire such a banner and put it on the building.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be good.
One saying thank you Monmouth voters or thank you Monmouth voters and watch this space or something like that. We were just talking about that today. So
that would be wonderful if that could be in place by the 4th of July parade.
And some reference to I'm gone, see you later.
I just want to add to that. I thank you, Madam Mayor, for the note in the utility bill. So I thought that was a good thank you in your note. So
yeah. Yep, we were very, very fortunate to be able to make the case. And I have every confidence we will do this carefully, thoughtfully, and prudently. So, all right. Concerns about that. All right. That brings us to our regular reports. And for my mayor's report this evening, other than our city hall, I would like to thank the organizers of the Monmouth for Justice celebration a week ago tonight. Had a lovely ceremony commemorating the not only unfortunate events of May 25th, 2020, the death of George Floyd, but really community and hope and faith and how we are going to move forward together. I really appreciate the honor of being invited and some wonderful speakers and wonderful music by our Western Oregon Chamber Singers. So it was a lovely event that I am pleased to say reflected our values and the peaceful way that people gathered together. So that was great. And that is all for me. Ms. Wine, why don't you go ahead and then we'll do our boards and commissions.
Sure. The only report I have for the council tonight is something that the mayor noted in her opening comments that has to do with our 99W bicycle and pedestrian corridor study, which launched this week. I just wanted to highlight for the council that you'll have an opportunity to take part in the outreach opportunities for that study as it goes forward. So I'm just noting it for you as we have those opportunities. We'll be working with ODOT and our community partners and hopefully all of you to come up with the ideas that will shape that study. So that's all I've got for tonight.
Great. Thank you. Boards and commissions. We had some meetings this month. Councilor McKeel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a report from the Tree Advisory Board. We had we have our board signing back up again for another round of appointments, so that's exciting. We also had a 6th grader, Timmy, who is a student at Monmouth Elementary School, who talked about how much he loves trees, to the point that a while back with all the wildfires, he actually saved some saplings, several evergreens and a maple sapling, and would like to plant them in Monmouth. So the Tree Advisory Board was very excited about that. And Gordon Taylor, who is a board member, is going to provide Timmy and his mom some large pots and some dirt so that the trees can be sufficiently planted, because they're only 5 inches high. So it'll be just a few years, but we will eventually have saved trees here in one of our Monmouth parks. We're also going to invite Timothy and his mom to come to the next tree planting event that we had, and he was very excited to be included in that. We did have a report of some pretty sad news then about all the trees that went down around town from the ice storm. So they reported there were some in Madrona Park, and Myrtle Street had some downed trees, Monmouth Street, South Monmouth, Ash Creek Drive. So that was pretty disturbing. But the Tree Advisory Board is actually working on some plans for, hopefully maybe we can start working on that over this upcoming year. So stay tuned for more news, but just a tickler to let you know that we have that on our radar. The board members also realize that with really dry spring that we're experiencing, that people need to be reminded to put some water on their trees so that they aren't in crisis. So they are working to, 2 board members are putting together a statement that can be shared in the newsletter, so to go out to residents. And finally, Amanda Robinson, who is a tree board member, had an idea for recruiting new members. She was thinking that we should go out to the farmers market in Independence to connect with Monmouth residents who might be at the market, and then let them know about the openings on the tree board. And so besides trying to recruit for the tree board, we could also provide information about trees. So I've been tasked with coming up with trees from the OSU Extension Service. And we can also provide some other city information. We were thinking that other boards and committees might want to join us as we go out to the farmers market to try to recruit residents. So if this sounds like a good idea, you can contact me and I'll put you on the organization list. We plan to gather information in June and start attending farmers markets in July. And that's my report.
Awesome. Great ideas. Thank you. Other boards and commissions? Yes, Councillor Carey.
Real brief on the planning commission, met on May 19, and held a public hearing on a conditional use hearing for, well, it's 236 Jackson Street East, which is the old police station come library, kind of right behind, which is now a church. And because it doesn't really represent itself well as that, they've asked to be able to put a wooden cross on the exterior of the building with no illumination, but nonetheless identify it as a house of worship. And Planning Commission passed that unanimously. There was a request from the developer of Edwards Addition. They'd like to be able to transfer some of their density from one phase to another. Not sure it got to the council, but there was a little bit of heartburn on the density and the number of vehicles using, I can't remember the name of the lane that goes,
Berkeley Street, I think.
Berkeley Street, yeah, and then the lane behind that.
Yeah.
Anyway, as a result of good conversation with the residents and others, they've decided to move one of their large multi-family deals to a different location, which would take some of the pressure off. It's good. Yeah, there you go. Berkeley Lane and Gwynn Alley. But that also passed. It's a nice job of working with, the developer, the planning commission, working with the developer to get something done that benefited everyone. And then the last, they had a work session on the side yard setbacks that we've had some discussion with, referred to the planning commission. They're going to come up with some language on that and get that resolved. That's the Dalton question out there. So anyway, that concludes it. Good work. A lot of work done on that one.
Thank you. Don't have a lot of our meetings since it's the first of the month here. So we'll have meetings coming up and we'll report on them at our next meeting. At this time then, we do have a couple of minutes for council comments, and then we are going to go into executive session. I want to announce that we would meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing performance evaluation of public officers and employees held pursuant to ORS 192-662I, which is specific to the performance evaluation of public officer and employee. It allows us to meet in executive session. Our only representative of the news media has actually left the meeting already, and all other members of the audience would be asked to leave the room. We won't be making any decisions this evening. We will return to regular session to adjourn. But this is for purposes of discussing a process to evaluate our city manager. So, council comments, anything, folks, to wrap up this evening?
I just want to say thanks to the folks who voted in the election, both pro and con, for participating in our democracy. I want to particularly thank those who voted pro, remembering those who voted con, because I believe that this is an important development for the city of Monmouth, long overdue. And I'm looking forward to seeing the new building arise from the ashes of the old when the time comes. And it was a good process, I think, from last city council all the way through to come up with a funding plan that will give us the resources necessary to build something that the city has needed for a long time and that will serve the city for a long time going forward. So thanks to all who participated. Thanks to all who rang doorbells. It was a good team effort all around getting the word out and the facts about the plan that was put forward. So thanks to everybody who helped.
And Counselor Belt.
I just want to thank Councilor Ober for an incredibly organized campaign. So it was amazing. Really simple, easy to use.
It was easy to do, Councilor McGill. I just sat down with maps and lists of voters. You did the hard work of going around ringing doorbells and talking to people. So you can't give me credit for the hard work you did. I appreciate everything you did.
Oh, thank
Counselor
you.
Belt.
So I just wanted to recognize the graphic arts students from Western Oregon University. One of their last class assignments for this year was to create a tourism poster for the Monmouth Independence Chamber of Commerce office. And a couple of Fridays ago, we had the posters recreated on canvas board, and we mounted them. The students actually mounted them in the Monmouth Independence Chamber office. They look amazing. They are just wonderful. There was a great article in the Itemizer Observer about it. This is actually my other hat. I'm on the Monmouth Chamber board as a Chariots representative, but I just want anybody that has an opportunity to go out to that office, go out there, look at the posters, and then also introduce yourself to the new executive director, who I remember her first name is Nikki, and unfortunately her last name escapes me, but she is starting this week, and so she's doing the training and the transition as our executive director.
Yeah, great. That was awesome. And Counselor Carey.
Briefly, we all saw an inquiry from one of our residents, Gene Caliguri, regarding the lack of turn pocket that,
The intersection at Church and 99.
Church and 99, yeah. And so, that, I believe it was Marty that sort of lit the fire under the right people. So we've got some hash marks, or not hash marks, but we've got some diagonal lines there, which clearly indicates that that's not a turn pocket, but it hasn't dissuaded people apparently. And, and then she has responded again, and it might be good that we let her know there's only so much that we can do, and there may be an educational piece that our police officers could do at some point. And honestly, it might be a good idea if anybody has a direct line to talk to the transportation people for the high school. Of course, that's about over now. But those buses slide into that pretty regularly. It's a difficult deal, but and then just then a question.
I'll see that someone speaks to the head of the transportation department of the school district about that.
I thought you might. And then the question on the letter we got today, was that just backlog from?
Look at the date on it. I don't think it was today.
No, it wasn't, but I received it today.
Right, because it was in your mailbox.
It's been there longer than
Yeah.
that.
It's been there since that date that's stamped on it.
It's hard to respond back unless, without seeing it, but we're not in, and I should stop by and check my mail apparently. Okay, well that explains that. It was sort of recycled from what we've heard, but good deal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other business at the moment, we will invite folks to leave. We're going to stop recording. As I mentioned, we'll go into executive session. We will return, but will